later all those broadcasts, you up the conversation. Commissioner for Resources Technology. If not, I know she would be with us. Fantastic. Can you introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you very much, and Excellencies, and good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good morning to everyone and the esteemed panelists. Professor Sarah Anyanga, Commissioner for Human Resources and Technology at the African Union. My department has education, science and technology, youth, and human resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know why you're feeling like it's afternoon, because you've been working hard. Time is, you work so hard, you wake up so early. This is what happens. Thank you so much, Commissioner, for being here. I'm going to invite our ambassador on the panel, Ghana to the African Union. Introduce yourself. Your Excellency, Amo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ama Chum Amoa. I'm Ghana Ambassador to Ethiopia and representative to the African Union and the city. I'm glad to be part of this.
Thank you so much. This is your panel. We're going to drive the conversation. This is going to be interactive. We are going to have first a keynote address. Then we would have the first round of conversation, which is setting the scene. Then we have a second round of conversation, which is confronting the impact. Then we open for conversation with the panel, with the audience, then have a summary and conclusion. So our next 1 hour, 40 minutes is 20 minutes. Look like. I also want to acknowledge that in the audience and with us are also members of the experts committee to the African Charter. We want to acknowledge Madam Maria Mapanika, who is with us, and we know they are in the room. We are all 150 people in this conversation. Ambassador Amachu, would like to invite you to give us a keynote address to share with us on the issue of discussion, flattening the inequality curve in COVID-19. Over to you.
Your Excellency, Professor Sarah Nyangabo, Commissioner, Department of Human Resources, Science and Technology of the African Union Commission, Ms. Anne-Brigitte Albertson, Chief Executive Officer, Plan International, Your Excellency, Madame Benita Diop, African Union Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security, Honorable Justice Lucy Ashago, Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Women in Africa, African Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights, Dr. Inyarazi, AU Ambassador on Ending Child Marriage in Africa, Dr. Githinji Gitahi, Group Executive Officer AMREF, Ms. Hannah Ajiman, leader and Plan International Ambassador, representatives of universities and other development partners, distinguished delegates, girls and boys who are here with us, ladies and gentlemen. Depending on where you are from, it's good morning, good afternoon, or evening. Allow me also to join Plan International to warmly welcome all to this very important high-level webinar on flattening the gender curve gender inequality curve, COVID-19, and the African girl. I believe we all recognize the fact that gender inequality continues to be a universal issue, as characterized by persistent discrepancies in how men and women are treated in many aspects of life. This year, 2020, marks 25 years since 189 countries signed the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, an ambitious and progressive blueprint for gender equality. Sadly, we are still lagging on many fronts. On top of that, we stand the risk of losing the limited gains over the years due to the impact of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. This makes the situation nearly hopeless for the already disadvantaged African girl in the quest for a brighter future. It's also a fact that women and girls are among those who suffer during emergencies. In Africa, they are amongst the most vulnerable groups likely to be impacted negatively by the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of exposure and lack of access to healthcare. Evidence from previous and other health crises that men and men, as well as girls and boys, aggravates the existence of equality between men and girls, while discrimination against marginalized groups such as persons who live in a there is some concern that the limited developments in the past are being rolled back, given that existing inequalities in social protection, health, socioeconomic, and safety. That's why I believe deliberate development issues and measures to flatten inequality curve are critical. 1.2 billion, of whom 600 million are adolescents, are directly impacted by COVID-19, partly because of their gender, age, and other vulnerabilities, including poverty, disability, race, ethnicity, and discriminatory practices. Again, violence, early pregnancy, limited opportunities for education and employment often cause girls and adolescents to enter adulthood at a severe disadvantage. Globally, we have COVID-19 related problems, which have disrupted education and livelihoods. According to reports from UNESCO, over 1.54 billion learners have had education disrupted. That number includes 753 million girls, over 111 million of which have been in least developed countries, with its attendant challenges. These include inequitable access and the digital divide, which prevent a lot of girls from present and learning outcomes. We can always drop out due to the situation, and I believe the African girl will be affected the most. In Africa, where the livelihood of girls and women depend on the informal economy, the lives of girls, their families, and communities face extreme stress from economic and health burdens. The International Organization estimates that African informal workers will face a staggering 81% decline in earnings, which is the largest globally. Thus, economic stress on families due to the outbreak can also pose serious threats to young women and girls and put them at higher risk of abuse, exploitation, child labor, and gender-based violence. Girls also face an unequal burden of unpaid care and domestic work, which will increase as they are kept at home. In such dire economic circumstances, girls are more likely to take on high-risk work for their economic survival. Another distressing challenge facing girls during the pandemic is the risk of sexual violence and harassment and abuse, which are exacerbated under lockdowns. There are also reports of increased domestic violence against young married women and girls, which is described as the shadow pandemic. Child marriage and other harmful practices following the lockdown. They also suffer from harmful social norms as well as what is known as double discrimination, which is based on age and gender. Again, reports are rampant that quarantine measures imposed as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic are putting girls at heightened risk of general violence and cutting them off from essential protection services and social networks. Evidence from past epidemics indicates that healthcare resources are often diverted from routine health services. This further reduces the already limited access of many girls and young women to healthcare services. It is also very concerning that the impact of COVID-19 on adolescent girls in humanitarian settings, including fragile, conflict, or disaster-affected contexts, would be very alarming, given the weak healthcare systems, which in most countries have quickly become overwhelmed. This situation could be further worsened by diversion of national resources into fighting the epidemic and withdrawal of staff from other critical sectors due to social distancing and government lockdowns. Despite these challenges, the African Union, member states, UN agencies, donors, and civil society organizations have effectively collaborated to provide respite and to reduce the impact of COVID-19 on children and women. Notwithstanding these efforts, however, there are concerns that the needs of children, adolescent girls, and women far outweigh the resources being invested by governments, development agencies, and donors. Since the first 2 cases of COVID-19 were confirmed in Ghana on 12 March 2020, the government has taken a series of measures to limit and contain the spread. Several far-reaching relief measures to ease the economic and social burden on households and businesses have also been put in place. The results are very encouraging, and this has given the government the courage to expand these measures to further soften the impact on households and businesses. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call on African policymakers to act quickly and decisively to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on girls, to ensure that we effectively flatten the gender inequality curve in Africa and build a better and more equitable continent. As the panel discusses the topic on flattening the gender inequality curve, COVID-19 and the African child, my personal reflections are as follows. First, there is the urgent need for every African country to have a multi-sectoral ministerial coordination to understand and commit to address the gendered impact of COVID-19 on the African world. Second, the need for rigorous protection and safeguarding of girls and women from gender-based violence must be prioritized in all COVID-19 response plans, policies, information, and guidance. Gender-based violence prevention and response mechanisms, as well as child protection and welfare services, must be fully funded and adapted where needed. Third, there is the urgent need for the full engagement of community leaders, families and caregivers, and particularly girls and women, CSOs and international development partners in all stages of national responses. Countries and organizations should strengthen the leadership and meaningful participation of girls and young women in all decision-making processes. Fourth, COVID-19 has exposed some of the deep-rooted gender inequalities and discrimination within our societies and institutions. And it is important that we use every opportunity and platform to flatten and address these gaps. Last but not the least, international development organizations and other non-state actors should support governments' response plans and actions through authentic engagement with girls and young women and ensure that funding reaches the most disadvantaged. Excellencies, distinguished participants, girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, I am confident that at the end of this forum, our eminent panelists will guide us to come out with concrete proposals to help secure the future of the African world. To quote Laurie Adele, misfortune is blessing in disguise. If the various inventions coming out of this pandemic in our various countries are anything to go by, we are poised to turn this misfortune into a blessing, an opportunity in creating the Africa we want, that is an equitable, integrated, prosperous, self-reliant, and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens, as envisaged in our Agenda 2063. I wish you a successful deliberation. Thank you for your attention, and God bless.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for those words, for a clear analysis, and also I was almost sitting up from where I am to do a clap when we talked about funding, when we talked about having gender capacity in the coordination of COVID-19 within our countries. I'd like to immediately move to invite my panelists to share reflections. This is going to be a conversation, 3 minutes for each intervention, and so that we also have enough time for discussions with the audience. AB, I come to you first. We know that the world is facing an unprecedented pandemic, as has been shared by Ambassador, and that is impacting all spheres of lives. It's not just a health issue, and much more so on girls and young women because of their vulnerability, but we also know that young women and girls. What do you make of all this? And what's your biggest concern? You lead this amazing organization, Plan International. What is coming out? What do you make of all this and your biggest concerns, AB?
Thank you, Naratsai, and many thanks to the Ambassador for a fantastic presentation on communities of COVID-19 on the globe. I think from a personal perspective, having worked for 30 years in the international development and humanitarian sector, what the Ambassador emphasized as losing the limited gains that we have made is something that keeps me awake at night. We have made some gains. I think we're all proud of them, and we now stand at a threshold where potentially those gains will be rolled back. The other thing that really resonates with me almost on a daily basis is that as we reshape our work in Plan International, we talk a lot to the girls themselves, of course, that we are our primary focus group. And the girls speak of the tremendous financial impact on their families. They speak of hunger. They speak of friends and schoolmates, etc., that are being forced into early marriage for economic reasons. They talk about fake news. They feel closed off from information. Many of them don't have their own smartphones, cell phones, or computers. They feel that they are not provided with the right information. So these are issues that come to mind. The other thing that also resonates and really feels profoundly disturbing is when we local civil society across Africa, with the feminist movement, with the activists that are really trying to create gender equality, with limited access to this, limited access to digital means. Their activity is really being hampered at this time. Something as simple as the cost of data time to be part of a conversation like this, where you've got videos and lots of stuff going on, they might be able to participate, many of them, for 5 minutes, and then their monthly data allowance has already run out. These are some of the things that are very real lived examples. In addition to that, just quickly, of course, and some of the things have been mentioned by the Ambassador, how are we going to get all the girls that are now out of school, that struggled against societal barriers and norms to get into school, how are we going to get them back? What kind of Pan-African campaign is going to be put in place to get those girls back to school when schools reopen? Because it won't just be, the school open and everybody back. There will be a huge struggle. The lack of access to services for sexual health will drive up teen pregnancies, mortality. We're going to see an awful lot of very, very young children and mothers emerge out of this crisis. So I think maybe, Nyaratai, these are some of the things that sort of keep me awake at night, that drive the interventions and activities of PAN International right now.
Yeah, last night I just received one of the girls at our Rosario Memorial Trust shelter. She's supposed to be in school, and she's a survivor of violence and rape, and these are real complex issues we are facing. But let's immediately go to Hannah. Hannah, you are a young woman yourself. What are you and your peers saying? What are the issues that COVID-19 is impacting on your lives? And are those issues finding expression in the responses by our countries, whether in Ghana or anywhere else? What is going on from your experience as young women, Hannah?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm excited to be here this morning to share my opinions on the negative effect of COVID-19 on young girls in Africa. As part of this webinar, I engaged some girls on the street to find out more about what is happening to them during this COVID-19 era. And most of the young girls I interacted are complaining or voicing out the issues of domestic violence. Now, before COVID-19, there was domestic violence, but the lockdown that had been initiated as a result of limiting affected cases of COVID-19 had led to the increment in domestic violence cases that are recorded daily. Unfortunately enough, everybody's attention has been jerked towards the virus, fighting the virus. So even DOVSO is not active now. How do these young girls speak? So most people I interacted with complain about domestic violence. Now, recently in the news, a brother has impregnated 3 sisters as a result of the lockdown because they are at home. They are not going to work. They are not going to school, and they are all in a confined area. A brother has impregnated 3 sisters and had run away from the home. This is one pure example of domestic violence cases as a result of this COVID-19. And then recently in the news also, a TV station here in Ghana called UTV also made us aware of how parents are sucking their girl children from home to go to their boyfriends as a result of this COVID-19. Now, the mother in question was living in a kiosk in one area in Accra here and was asking the daughter to go to the boyfriend to stay with her. When the lockdown is over, then she comes home. And now I think the mother is